and it's been recorded, and hopefully it's being enjoyed. Brilliant, 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 brilliant. One more thing to do before we get going. All right, very cool. Yes, yes. I'm just hoping that, I know Jessica can't make it. I'm hoping Sure can. It's an important part today. Very important. Kind of a big deal, actually. What we're going to be focusing on today. All right. I'm just going to give everybody a little bit of chance to get here. Yum, yum, yum. We'll get going in a second here. Take some vitamins first. 4 in 1. I never did that before. 4 of those bigger ones. Well, they weren't the huge vitamin ones, but the medium size, like capsules and that. So anyway, I was a bit concerned about how that might go down. So when it went down, fine. All right. Sure is on. She might come today. So let's up. A lot of stuff going on in people's lives. Can't always come, but always the replay, of course, always available on the replay, right? So this is always there. Us to be aware, and I think I mentioned this before, but usually I say it at the end. If you're watching on replay and you make a comment, Facebook has a very nice feature where they put a timestamp behind your comment. And if I click on that timestamp, it takes me to the part in the video where you commented. So I see what it is that you're commenting about, right? This is very cool, very cool. And I'm very diligent about comments. So, I always follow up on them. It's very important. So please make those comments, yeah? And I always follow up on them. It's very important. I enjoy taking care of the comments and paying attention to them. Comments are very important. And, with that timestamp, I can see what you're talking about. You don't have to sort of, repeat it and say what you're talking about, what you're referring to. Like if you say, oh, that's cool. Well, I go and see what you're talking about, that what you thought was cool. It's very cool. It's a very cool feature, very awesome feature, and a very useful feature also. So quite marvelous, quite marvelous. All right, brilliant. So what I want to talk about today is payoffs. We're going to see how this falls into place in a moment. Let me just pull this up here. So we're going to, this is module 3, and it's called Discerning the Complexity. Now, this course, the overview is, it's about freedom from anxiety and worry, right? That's our goal. We want to have freedom from anxiety and worry. Very important that we have this in our lives, right? It's a big deal goal. And we went through the different modules, and the last module was about understanding what's underneath it all. And now we're going to get into discerning the complexity involved in anxiety and worry. In other words, it's not a simple business, right? It's not a simple thing. And we want to understand this. We want to discern the complexity, which is a different deal, yes? In other words, we want to be able to look at the layers involved. That's what discernment is, right? Seeing the layers, seeing the moreness, seeing how things fit together, and particularly looking past step 1, right? A lot of times we only look at the surface. We don't go a little deeper. We don't go to step 2. We don't go to step 3. And then you don't know what's going on. It's like you're watching a mystery movie. If you watch the first, I don't know, 10 minutes, half an hour mystery movie, you're like, what the hell is going on? I don't know. I'm confused. And a lot of people in life, they just give up. Oh, I don't know what's going on. They feel stupid and then they just quit. Right? They never get to the more. But if you start to discern the complexity, you realize, wait a second, this is a mystery movie. Of course, there's more coming. Now, in a mystery movie, we're prepared to wait because we know it's a mystery movie. But we don't do this with other things and in typical in life. Like, for instance, dealing with anxiety and worry. Treat it like a mystery movie. In the beginning, you don't know what's going on, and you persist, and eventually you figure it out and you find out what's going on, right? Very simple, very simple. So discerning the complexity, very, 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 very important. All right. So these are the contents of this module. Oh, excuse me. What's the payoff or the motivation, right? Very, very powerful, or both together. Yeah. They're not necessarily the same thing, but typically we are motivated by the payoff. But we may be motivated and not get a payoff, or we may have a payoff that's not really a payoff. That's why it's discerning the complexity. As we're going to see, this point about payoffs is a huge deal. You'll see in a moment. You'll see in a moment. Most excellent. Most excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you, Will. Thank you for the coffee. All right, so we're going to also be dealing with convenient excuses to avoid stress and pressure. Convenient in inverted commas. Yes, not actually convenient, we just believe to be convenient. Self-sabotage oddities. That's what we're going to be looking at too. It's like, man, oddities of self-sabotage, like the self-evident in the title. We're going to look closely at that. We're going to look at blame and non-ownership. We're going to look at not knowing what else to do, a very big problem. Oftentimes we do things simply because we don't know what else to do. And we're going to look at valid fears. We are, again, our heading here, our module title, Discerning the Complexity. Yes. Before we go any further, let me just pull this up so I can see what's going on. That's not where I want to be. That's the wrong Facebook page. I want to look at the other Facebook page and move this so that I can see if there's any comments that come up while we're live. I like to see the comments. This is important. It's interactive. So Norma, it normally comes. Norma said she was going to come. I don't know where she is, but so I can see if somebody's commenting while we're talking. So I can respond in real time. Well, as close to real time as we get. There's always about a 30-second delay because I'm on Zoom, right? So, and Facebook and all this. So there's a little bit of a delay. All right. So hopefully they come. All right. We'll carry on. I'll just talk to you person out there watching the replay. I'm talking to you. Wherever you are, magical person, I appreciate you and I'm glad you're there. Wonderful. Our quote here is, seriously, who do we think we're fooling? Yes, Worry Pots, I'm talking to you. Seriously, who do you think you're fooling? Right? But take this is a bit of a mystery too. This is going to make a bit more sense when we come to the payoffs section. Right? So somebody's messaging me. Let me go have a look real quick there in case it's something important. Who's messaging me? What's up? I said to somebody, hope you can, I meant to type come, but I said cope. Hope you can cope. It's the payoffs. Man, that changes the whole message. It's meant to be sure. I hope you can come. It says, what? Says sure. Sorry. Just my typo. I was in a hurry. I was a bit late getting started. So I was in a hurry. So, all right. So I hope you can come, sir. I hope you can come. So I'm just going to hang in a second here before we go to the next slide there. All right. Okay. Okay. All right. You can listen, but you can't come. All right. All right. So we won't have sure. No worries. No worries. I know. Sure. I know. Stuff is people are busy. It's all good. Dang it. Typing. No worries, not no warriors. That doesn't really help much. Yeah. Payoffs. What are the payoffs for anxiety and worry? That's what we want to know. Yes? Come on, really. You have to make things difficult here. Let's go back. All right. What are the payoffs? And seriously, who do we think we're fooling? This is an important point for later as we come through, because we're going to see that most of these payoffs are somewhat self-deceptive. Yes. So here is this list of payoffs. Yeah. So what are the payoffs or the motivations for anxiety and worry? I'm going to make this full screen because this is a big slide. I cannot emphasize how enormous this is, right? I put in a ton of it here, but I'm not going to read through it in one go. I'm going to take them one by one, right? And we're going to deal with these because this is discerning the complexity. So I want to be very clear about what it is that we're doing. Clarity of intent is paramount in everything. That is module 1, session 1 of Way of Impeccability, clarity of intent. You know what you're doing. Everything becomes pertinent and relevant. If you're clear about your intent, everything starts to connect via pertinence and relevance, and it's thereby enhanced and leveraged. So we want to be very, very clear. And now we are looking at what are the typical payoffs and motivations. And these involve not so clear intents, right? And not so scrupulous intents, not so impeccable intents. In other words, take the first one there, right? The payoff for anxiety and worry, the motivation is to get attention, right? So I just said attention because, yes, it also puts our attention on things, but in this case, the payoff is getting attention, right? Others' attention, which we've been trained our lives to do, and it's a terrible motivation, right? When we are motivated by the attention of others, don't we make ourselves a bit addicted to others and vulnerable to others and give them power over us? In other words, if my happiness is determined by your approval, your attention, I'm a slave to you. How does this make sense as a personal motivation? See, when we do some discerning, we say, oh, yeah, wow, yeah, okay. Or you may know somebody who's a worry pot and you kind of say, yeah, of course, they're always worrying about stuff. They're always anxious. It helps them to get attention in a way because they don't know how else to get attention, or they can't justify getting attention in other ways. So this is kind of a nice, subtle, very safe way of getting attention. But not a good motivation, right? Not in general. We've been taught to get attention, but it's a terrible, terrible, terrible motivation. It's a slavery motivation. It is a self-defeating motivation. Makes you vulnerable, yeah? Makes you empty. Always you're living other people's lives. What they decide is, their attention. In other words, they in charge of what makes you happy. It's like, wow, no. This is no good. This is no good at all. This is not what we want. We want to have independence of being. We want to live our own lives. We want to be real. If you're living according to somebody else's attention and approval and etc., how is your life real? Think about that for a second. How is your life real if getting attention from others and approval from others, because getting attention from others is intimately linked with getting approval. Yeah? They're very tight together. Kissing cousins. All right, comfort, another payoff and motivation. It gives you comfort when you're anxious and you're worrying. Yes. You say, yeah, but I don't like worrying. I'm all stressed and bothered. But there is an element of comfort involved. Yeah. Think about that for a second. How do you get comfort out of anxiety and worry? And of course, these are are essentially BS motivations and payoffs for the most part. There are some that are legitimate in here, but most of them are, they believed to be a payoff. But it's a very steep price you're paying for this comfort that you get from anxiety and worry, right? Because, well, I'm worrying about something. I should worry about it. I should worry about, let's just say, pollution, right? Okay. So I'm worrying about it. I'm not saying don't be concerned about it. Don't do something about it. Don't make an effort about it. But anxiety and worry, this is a negative concern, right? You're looping in a negative mindset. It's unhappy, it's miserable, it's stressful, but it does also at the same time give you comfort. So now you've got a balance. You've got simultaneous things happening. You've got that negativity of worry, which is a negative state of being by definition. Anxiety is a negative state of being by definition. But you're also getting some comfort out of it, right? But if you only think, well, it gives me comfort, but I'm paying this massive price for it, it's like, really, you're missing the forest for the trees here. Yeah. And this happens all the time. We do things that are profoundly negative sometimes for a tiny little bit of payoff. Yeah. And we don't see it. We don't see it in energy terms. We don't see the overall big picture. This is what we're doing here. Discernment is getting to see more, getting to see depth, getting to see overview. This is what discernment is all about. Very big deal. Yes. Very, very big deal. All right. Caution. This is a positive payoff, right? It makes us, our worry and anxiety makes us cautious. It can also make us overcautious, like a typical worry pot. They don't really ever do much because they're too afraid to do anything because they're always worrying, right? So they become unable, they become inhibited, as it were, right? They become restrained. So caution can be a positive. Well, I'm a bit worried, so that means I need to be cautious. But then the next step is I've got to take action on that, not just get stuck in that loop to say, well, I'm worried, that makes me cautious. And now I feel good about myself, but I'm just looping, and I'm not doing anything, right? See, without application, doesn't mean anything, right? So we've got to actually get to do something. But that can be a positive, but also, again, if it's not done fully and appropriately and thoroughly, it doesn't get you anywhere, right? Importance. Oh, if I'm worrying, I saw this in my mother when I was a teenager, right? How her and her friend weekly, in those days, you didn't get on the phone every 5 minutes. Phone calls were a very scarce thing and they were relatively expensive and they were kind of a big deal. So once a week, she'd get together with her friend. I know. In today's cell phones, this does sound realistic and it sounds completely nuts that you would get on the phone once a week with your friend. Yeah, but that was it. Okay, maybe other people did more regularly, but in our house, that was it, right? And of course, as children, you didn't get to use the phone. I mean, this was special occasions. You had to have a really good reason for using the phone. It was very rare. If you needed to tell your friend something, well, you had to go to their house. Doesn't matter that they lived a couple of miles away and you had to trek all the way across town on your bicycle or walk. Doesn't matter. You did that. It's just, that was the way it was. Okay, I'm just making a point a little bit, that things change. And when we get some perspective, we learn to see things a little differently. Anyway, so on my mother's weekly phone call to a friend, they would, this is what they would do: share worries and concerns. Oh, did you hear about so-and-so? Of course, they're also gossiping, right? But they would disguise the gossip. It comes further in here, gossip as a payoff. They would disguise the gossip as worry and concern. But they would say it with that inflection. Oh, do you think that this marriage is going to last between the two of them? I don't think it's going to last. I'm worried that the guy is not a nice guy or whatever. But they say it in such a way that this is the most important thing that they are sharing in the world. It gives them reflective payoff, like, hey, I'm saying something important. You don't really have much to say. You're just gossiping and you're pulling somebody down to make yourself feel better. You're doing all sorts of crappy stuff, but you're disguising it as looking important. Right? You're disguising it as anxiety and worry. When we start to discern anxiety and worry, it gets very ugly underneath. Sorry, it's not applied to all people. I realize that. Some people worry because of innate goodness, and they're just doing something because they think they're supposed to, and they do nonsense for no good reason. This happens too, right? It happens all the time with goodness, unfortunately. That's why we need to learn to think for ourselves. But if they're not so nice, like, but crappy, okay, well, there you go. Disguising their anxiety and worry as importance. No, sorry. If you got half a ear ability to hear and pay attention, you see this. And that's why the previous quote, who do you think you're fooling? And I was listening to my mother and a friend, who do you think you're fooling? You're trying to look clever. You're trying to look important. You're trying to look insightful. You're trying to look sensible. You're trying to be predictive. You're doing all the stuff to boost your ego. You don't care about the people. I know you don't care about the people, because next week you're gossiping about somebody else and you've forgotten all about this person and they don't exist in your lives anymore. If you really cared, you'd be following up. You'd be checking to see whether your worry actually has any validity. They never followed up on anything. I did. I took a lot of things that they're worried about. Oh, they're worried about, let's just say, for instance, the school bazaar. Oh, I'm worried that there's not going to be enough people at the school bazaar. No, that was stuff that was a big event at that time. And they never checked to see if what they were worried about, that there were enough people and enough people came and enough people made, whatever the worry was. I don't know. They're worried about ridiculous things. It's very hard to remember. I can't remember ridiculous things really. But I checked, I followed up on those things. I was curious to see, what percentage of these things that they're worried about. None of them happened that I remember. All right, I guess technically something may have happened, but, they were really worried about petty stuff with people, and doing stuff. They never materialized. So statistically, I was at that scientific mindset, wanted to do this as a field study. I wanted to see what percentage is this valid, because it could just as well turn out positive, which it did. The overwhelming majority of the time, I truly can't remember any time where their worries actually came out negative, but I'm just going to say for purposes of argument here that I don't remember that because it was so insignificant. But, let's just say 90% of the time, their worries were for nothing. And they didn't update. They didn't come back and say, wow, we've been worrying about this stuff, but it never really happens, so we don't need to worry. Of course, they want to have something to be able to worry about, because they're getting all these other payoffs, the attention, the comfort, the importance, right? The misplaced caution makes them feel cautious, which makes them feel sensible and appropriate and all this stuff, right? So when you look at it in this context, we start to see this priority. So this is kind of an interesting payoff from or motivation to anxiety and worry. It raises the priority of things, right? So if there's something that catches my attention in a way, legitimately, right? I'm going along, la la la, I'm doing my things here, whatever, let me imitate my la la la, because I'm not walking, but la la la. I don't know if you can hear me typing. Well, no, I need to move forward here now. But the point I'm making is I'm happily going along, doing internet stuff, typing, chatting, whatever I'm doing, right? And suddenly something starts to like come in. What's going on? I'm a bit, something's not right here. I'm a bit worried about something. Oh, it's raised priority of whatever that issue was in my world. Yes. So this is a positive part of it. It's what comes next that's important. Once you're aware that, this thing is worrying me a little bit, whatever this is, right? Okay, let's say somebody was chatting to me and they're talking nonsense, but I've got 3 or 4 chats going at the same time, but one of them is like worrying me a bit. What's wrong here? Okay, now I need to pay more attention. I can't just stop at being worried about it. Worrying is not the end point, and this is the big issue for worriers and those that are anxious. Worry pots, I call you guys, right? So you're a worry pot until you change this. I'm going to call you a worry pot. So if you're a worry pot, be aware that when you're starting to worry, it's step 1, not the end and final step. That's the issue here. If you get stuck like my mother on things like attention and comfort and importance and other BS and all this nonsense, you're going to see a lot of BS reasons coming, right? Then this becomes the end point and it doesn't mean anything, right? You just loop and goes nowhere. But if you say, oh, this something is now a priority, that of the 3 chats that I was in or 4 chats I was in, the one that's worrying me, I better pay attention to what's going on here. Oh, I see. Okay. This person was all friendly and nice, but yeah, meanwhile, they're just trying to catfish me or whatever they're trying to do. Okay. So if you don't know what catfishing is, go look it up. And I don't mean the actual fishing for catfish, right? So learn some stuff. Yeah, in case you don't know, but most likely people today are very savvy about that stuff. But I do have some friends that are from pre-internet era that are recently on, and they don't know what catfishing is. So, so I'm just sharing. It's interesting. It's very interesting. So it's good to be aware of, right? Stuff like that. It's good to be aware of. All right. So the next one is getting heard. Think about that. This is a very sad point here. Getting heard. Yeah. That makes sense that I'm saying this is a sad point. Yeah. Makes sense. It's a very sad point. People are anxious and they worry and they share those worries because, like my mother, she wants to get heard. She was profoundly lonely at that point in time in her life, right? She was divorced, fairly recent couple of years, and had nothing really in her life. And, not being always the nicest possible person, um, she didn't have a lot of real true friends, because if you don't like yourself, if you're not comfortable with yourself, it's very hard to really have deep friendships. Yes, it doesn't happen that easily. That's why why loneliness is such a big deal, because people don't really enjoy themselves. They're not comfortable with themselves, and they engage in all sorts of bullshit activity, like looking for attention, like elevating their importance, playing hierarchy games, right? And making themselves a priority, if we take priority in the other way. So, of course, if you've got a lot of nonsense that you want to say all the time, you're not really going to get heard. Because, like my mother and a friend, I could hear by the rhythm of the conversation that they talking pretty much over each other, right? And there's no follow up to it. I mean, even from one side, you can hear what's going on the other side. If you're saying something and the other person is really listening to you, they're going to come back and there's a pause, and then you're going to be listening to what they say in return. And there's a lot of rhythm to a real conversation. BS conversations, they basically end up people saying the same thing. They're talking together. They're not really listening. They're just listening to themselves. But the downside with that is that because they talk in this way, that they're just looking to elevate their egos and their self-importance, they don't ever get heard. Yeah. And this is very important. And not only to get heard, but to feel heard. Sometimes, I really make an effort to hear people. It's part of, I've got a whole program, coaching program. It's a self-coaching program as well. And a program for coaches to learn to be a life coach. It's all about, the key part of it is, about learning to capital H here, and also to learn to capital M and capital S, make space. And there's a lot of other things, learning how to pay attention, energy management. Anyway, but the point is that the key of it is to make sure that somebody else, your client or yourself, that you feel heard, or the client feels heard. This is a big deal, because if you look around and you ask yourself this, pay attention to people around you. How many people in your life do you know, yourself included, that feels heard? Capital H, heard. Right? How often do you feel heard? Ever? If ever. No? If ever. Wonderful, 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 wonderful. Tammy, are you joining for the live? Oh, wow, that went quick. Let me just take a moment here and chat to Tammy. I know we were going to get together later. Tammy wants me to talk about this, all that I'm talking about, and toxicity, especially, and toxic relationships in a summit that she's putting together. And she said she was going to come later at 12 o'clock her time, which is 11 o'clock my time, but I think she's a little early. So, but I don't know, maybe she wants to join the oh, yeah, she is again. Hopefully she wants to join the Zoom. Hope so. Okay. We'll see in a second. Sorry for the interruption here. Brilliant. Hello.
Hi, Sil. I was just
Hello.
testing. I was just testing
Oh,
everything to make sure it would go through, so I'd be ready at 1 o'clock.
Okay. So what I'm doing right now is I'm doing the live in my Facebook group about the anxiety and worry program. So if you
Okay.
want to, we can if you've got a few minutes here, you can just kind of hang out with me. And I mean, I'm going through the program. I'll show you in a second here. It's an online program, and I go through it in detail. And of course, anybody can do this. And then there's more involved: the repeat backs, takeaways, dictionary power, all that stuff. But we can just kind of hang out a little bit, and you can kind of get a feel of what I do and how I do and what I'm talking about. Now, in
Okay.
this case, I'm talking about anxiety and worry. But it's only
Okay.
if you have time. I don't know, so just hang out with me. It's all good, right?
Okay. I have a few minutes. I have my students with me, but I'll have a few minutes before I can, and then I'll have to check back in
Oh,
with
okay.
you.
Well, in that case, then just come back later on, because it gets involved, and I want to
Yeah.
hear what you have to say, and give me feedback and all this. So
Okay.
just want to make sure it's Tammy, or how do you say it?
It's Tammy.
Tammy. Okay. All right.
Uh-huh.
All right. I got it.
Okay.
I just
I
want
will.
to check,
I will.
because in today's world, you never know. It can
Oh,
be
yeah, I
Tamai.
know. Okay. I'll see you. I'll talk to you at 1. Okay.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Brilliant. All right. I'll see you later. Right. All right. Bye-bye. 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 Wonderful. 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 Yeah. See, when you don't worry, you don't stress like this. Okay. This wasn't part of the deal, but so what? Does it really matter that we have a little interruption? No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. So, we got to be chill in life. We got to be chill. We're too exact. So I like to have that freedom and flexibility that, things just kind of come as they come. So brilliant. All right. So where were we? Oh, Janelle is here. Brilliant. Brilliant. And Ryan is here. And Norma is here. Norma's 50% here. Which 50%? The top 50%, bottom 50%, left 50%, right, front, back, which 50%? Is it maybe, anyway, brilliant, brilliant. All right. Hello, Ryan. Hello, Janelle. I'm super glad you guys are here. So we're looking at payoffs, and I'll go back to this in a second here. Right. I don't know when you came on. So I had this full screen. So we're looking at the payoffs for anxiety and worry. But it's more than just the payoffs for anxiety and worry. It's also just payoffs in general. When we start to be aware of what our payoffs are, and we ask this question, what's the payoff here? Man, we start to see things in a very, very different and profound way. And we start to realize that, things aren't quite as simple as we thought they were. So being aware of payoffs is a very, very profound, big deal. Very, very big deal. So I'm thrilled you guys are here. This is very, very exciting. Very exciting. I just want to put it so that I can see you. Oh, that's not that. There we go. There we go. Let me move this a bit there. All right. So I can see the comments as they come up. Right? So please feel free to comment anytime. This is it. I love those comments that you make. They really help me a lot. So we went through some of these. These are the payoffs and motivations for anxiety and worry. Now, some of them are, of course, they payoffs also for other motivations, like self-importance or ego or vanity or whatever, right? And they also societal ones like attention or getting approval, right? So some people, I'm just going to start over. I don't know how far back you went here, but I'm just going to jump from there, and then I'll carry on where I want to do. So I just want to make the overall point that these understanding what the payoffs and the motivations for our behavior are, they can apply to any behavior. If you abstract it and you look at it in a bigger picture, right? You get to see, Ramsey is with us as well. All right, brilliant, Ramsey. Nice to see you. Hello there. Yes, I'll give you a nice wave back there. So marvelous, marvelous. Again, Ramsey too, feel free to ask questions in chat there. It's a 30-second delay, but I see it and I do respond, right? So it's not a problem. I love the questions or comments, and I make an effort to respond to them. So what we're looking at are these payoffs and motivations to understand them, and we're going to use anxiety and worry as the particular case study, but be aware that this can apply to anything. For instance, right, take attention. I'm saying that when it comes to anxiety and worry, this is a common motivation for anxiety and worry. It gets the people attention, right? People are paying attention to them because anxiety and worry. Because how do you ignore somebody who is engaged in anxiety and worry? You can't really ignore them, right? You have to give them attention. So this is an easy way to get attention. It's not the best of motivations, right? But it's a motivation. Now, people get attention in other ways. They get attention through anger sometimes. They get attention through being a nuisance. Through, all sorts of negative behaviors are done because people think they should get attention. We are taught from young that getting attention is a goal in life. Well, it's a very crappy goal. Because if you are saying that I get my joy and pleasure out of the attention of others, am I not making myself vulnerable to others? Yes, I am. Right? They determine my happiness, not me. So this is a massive, massive, great big deal. Yes. And that's why I'm going over it again here to understand this and be aware of this and understand how it works. It's a massive, big deal. Yeah. So this is a big payoff for that and all of these others. So we were on getting heard. You hear some people, and pay attention to people who are consumed with anxiety and worry, and who are, I call them worry pots. Like their default mode is to worry about something, right? And if you listen to them, ask yourself, how often is that person heard, a capital H heard, right? Really heard. And think to yourself, what does it mean to really hear somebody? Then ask it personally. What does it mean to me when I actually get heard? And even more so when I feel heard. How often in your lives, talking Norma, talking Ryan, talking Janelle, Ramsey, all of you, right? I want to ask you this question. How often do you feel heard? Now, Janelle, Ryan, Norma, you've interacted with me. Ryan, Janelle, you guys have been on Zoom. So you know what it's like to feel heard, right? Because this is what we make an effort to do when we're on Zoom and we're interacting together, right? You get listened to, capital L listened to, you get capital H heard, right? There's that deliberate intent for you to get heard and feel heard, right? Now, hopefully you ended up feeling heard. So I do feel that you know what this is about, right? This, at least from my perspective, I feel that you felt heard, right? Or get heard. It's important. So my point is, though, ask this question: how many people truly feel heard? The answer is, unfortunately, very, very, very few. It's a big deal. It's one of the biggest problems in the world that nobody feels heard. And of course, for social media, this is what everybody's trying to do. But of course, it takes two. It takes more than one, right? You can say all the things you like, but somebody has to make that effort to hear you. Yes, a very, very big deal. So not only is it something that you want in your life, but likewise, it is a very profound thing to make the effort to hear others, especially the person that you are intimate with, your loved one, right? All your loved ones. Take that little bit the extra time instead of giving them a present, any kind of present. I tell you what, give them the present of actually making sure to hear them, which doesn't mean just you let the words go in your ear. That's not hearing them, right? Capital H hearing is a lot more than it. I've got a huge program that goes into this. I'm not going to get into this because it's a layered, sophisticated thing, right? There's a lot that's involved in this. But if you truly make the effort to hear somebody, you're going to give them one of the most precious, precious gifts that you could ever imagine. This is a truly, truly powerful, real gift that actually really makes a difference. The point I'm trying to make is, and when I first said this, I said this point here, this payoff, this motivation, this one of getting heard, this is a very sad one. Because this is why people are lonely, because they don't get heard, right? It's one of the reasons that they're lonely. Not the only reason, but one of the reasons. It's a profound problem in our society. People aren't heard, and as such, they're not only lonely, but they're insecure, and they unsure of themselves, they're confused. Lots of problems come from not getting heard. Very big deal, right? So when we see this and we understand this in ourselves, oh, I see why I'm focused on anxiety and worry, because I'm trying to get heard. And I don't want to go around and say, hey, people, listen to me. How do you say this? It doesn't make any sense. So I find some other way to try and get heard. Because with anxiety and worry, if I say, hey, this is an important thing, this is serious, and this is a problem, and all the things that typically come with worry, you can't really not listen to somebody when they're talking about stuff that we should be listening to, because, well, hey, it's a problem, and it could be a problem. Right? So this is a very, very, very powerful payoff and a motivation. All right. So the next point of payoff or motivation here is perception of caring. Yes. So people worry and they are anxious because it creates the perception that they are caring. Again, going back to my mother on a weekly phone call with her friend, that was a massive goal for her, right? That she was looking to convince her friend that through her worrying, look how much I care. And her friend was doing the same thing, right? So yeah, the two of them were going all their worries and anxiety. But look what a caring person I am. Look what a caring person. This is what's the undertow, right? The in between the lines. If you can learn to listen between the lines, you hear the intent that people are doing. Why is this so important? Because, well, my mother didn't really care. Her friend, they didn't really care. As is evidenced by the fact that they never followed up. They never, all the things that they worried about, people, this, that, and the other, whoever, somebody getting married or the new, I don't know, the new baby or whatever, they never followed up, ever. So do you really care? No, you care about being perceived as caring. In other words, bullshit. Yeah. So be aware. Don't do things for bullshit reasons, people. It's hollow. It goes nowhere. It goes nowhere. You just loop over and over. Like my mother and a friend, they would have the same phone call every week. That's it. Just do the same nonsense every week. Right? Big deal. Okay, now we come to a more or less legitimate motivation and payoff for anxiety and worry, which is stress release. Right? People have got too much going on, so okay, you basically vent a little bit through your anxiety and worry, right? But unfortunately, like in my mother's case, this became a habit, and this was all day long about everything. She never got out of stress, the stress of anxiety and worry, right? She had this as a constant loop, right? I mean, she's looking to try and release the stress, but at the same time, she's also creating it with anxiety and worry. Yeah, because she never followed through. She never went all the way. That's why I keep saying, right? It's the mantra of Way of Impeccability. Without application, it's all meaningless. There's no application in my mother's case. So she worried to release the stress, but then the worry and anxiety created stress, which she then had to release and loop over and over. It's this ongoing spiral. Terrible, terrible way to live. Horrible, horrible, horrible. Right? Also, look at the next one, right? Before I go to the next one, any questions? Any questions, anybody? Yeah. Oh, pleasure, Ramsey. Hello, man. Hello. Yes. Yeah, I'm glad to hear. I'm really glad to hear. It's really cool. And again, ask questions. Interrupt me. It's not a problem. Ask, type away. Yeah. Don't be shy. Don't be shy. Don't be shy. Like Norma always asks questions. Well, today she's only 50% here, so we maybe get only half-hearted questions. I don't know, but half questions like what is ... All right. But Norma always asks really cool questions. So I'm keen for questions from you, Norma, if possible. But all right, I appreciate that you're elsewhere and you're busy. So all good. Yeah, please ask or comment either way. Right? The next one is where are we? Oh, attempted guilt elimination. If you're not a nice person and you do stuff that you're not supposed to do, that you shouldn't do, not according to society, but according to yourself, your own conscience. If you overstep your conscience all the time, well, you're going to have legitimate guilt. And, well, you got to get rid of that guilt somewhere. So, well, sometimes it's difficult. And the only way to really get rid of guilt is to change. It's a very profound point. So I'm going to emphasize this again, right? I've said something which is truly life-changing deal. Let me repeat that again. It's a massively big deal. Sometimes we hear these things and there's not enough emphasis on how big a deal they are. But what I said was an incredibly big deal. The only way to get rid of guilt, real legitimate guilt, is to truly change, become a different person, right? If I'm completely a different person to the idiot who did that thing way back when, well, I'm a different person now. I can't feel guilty about what I did when I was an idiot. It's like I don't feel guilty for pooping in my pants. I used to do that every day once upon a time. Okay, pooping in your pants, not necessarily something to feel guilty about, but all right, just for purposes of the argument. I'm making a point that, stuff I did as a baby or a little kid, or even as a child, or even as a teenager, or even as a young adult, or even, I don't know, as an older adult, those were different me's. Why? Because every day I make an effort to change. And every time I do something and I realize after, crap, that wasn't so cool, I don't just say, well, yeah, okay, whatever. No, I change. I change so I don't do it again. Right? This is genuine living. This is how you can live guilt-free. Yeah, it's part of impeccability. You change. You change. You make that effort to change. But if you don't, then you need some way to get rid of that guilt. So anxiety and worry. Say, look, I'm a caring person. Look how this is. All the stuff. Pay attention to me. I'm being cautious. I'm being sensible. I'm being. Well, it's a way of getting rid of the guilt, right? It's all disguised in there, right? It's BS, but okay. It's at least attempted guilt elimination. Note well, attempted, right? Do they succeed? Of course not. So you can't get rid of guilt by disguising it as anxiety and worry. Yeah. No, you're feeling bad. You're just transforming it into something else. Doesn't work. Doesn't work. Right. So disguise, right? It's part of the same thing. Anxiety and worry is so often a disguise for something else. And that's the payoff. That you've got all this crap and nonsense that's going on inside you, and you want to disguise it. Yeah. So very, very powerful. Disguise, very big motivation for anxiety and worry. So start paying attention. Of course, you want to pay attention to yourself. But when it comes to things like anxiety and worry, or deeply entrenched habits that are somewhat oblivious, yeah, it's hard to see it in yourself. Pay attention to others who worry. Really observe them. Observe. Don't make any thoughts. No analysis, nothing. Just observe. Just let the information come in. And you are going to see the most profound things that you never really thought, especially now that you've got some of these ideas into your head. So you could just take this one point, right? Observe somebody who's talking about their anxiety and worry, all the stuff that they talk about, and say, what are they disguising? You're going to be surprised. You're going to be surprised. It's disguise. For instance, they're disguising the fact that they want to be heard. Yeah, they're disguising the fact that they want attention. They want comfort. Yes. Yeah. So disguise is a major motivation because, like I said, anxiety and worry is a very particular thing. That when somebody says something that is a worry or anxiety, it's also a should. Hey, you should pay attention to this. That's what a worry is. It's a should that you should pay attention to. Yeah, because, well, it's important. Something's going to happen. If you don't pay attention to the worry, then the bad thing is going to happen. So they force you to pay attention. And it's very hard not to. Yeah, of course, when they do it over and over, and you say, you're just worrying again. And you start to ignore them. So it's like crying wolf. Yes, you get heard the first few times, but after a while, say, too bad, Peter, we're not going to listen to you anymore. And then, of course, the wolf comes and eats everybody. And then it's like, right. So this is the problem with anxiety and worry. You become Peter. Yeah. If you don't know the story of Peter and the wolf, look it up. Go look up the original fairy tale. It's a very powerful story. Yeah. Very, very powerful story. Very good story. Very good to be aware of, right? There's a nuance to the story. It's a very, very tragic, horrible story, but that's the point of it, right? So if you're a constant worry pot, you are becoming a Peter. Yes. And then the wolf comes, eats you, eats everybody. And then when you cry wolf and your anxiety is now actually real, your worry is now for real, it's legitimate, nobody hears you, right? So save your worry for when it matters. Don't use it up on bullshit. Yeah? Very, very, very important. Okay. So we get satisfaction out of anxiety and worry. How? Well, we get our egos done, we're getting attention and all this, right? So there is a certain measure of satisfaction. Like I saw my mother and her friend, right? How they would have the satisfaction out of being a warrior. It's fantastic. I mean, it's really crazy how we can get satisfaction out of things that we believe are giving us value. Yes, there is some real value in that satisfaction, but the price you pay for it is enormous. It's inordinate. So be very careful of saying, well, I'm getting satisfaction out of this. Is it a genuine, legitimate, worthwhile satisfaction, or is it bogus? Is it a very expensive satisfaction? Right? Very big deal. Very, very big deal. All right. Next one is avoiding responsibility. Think about that for a second. Again, don't think of yourself, or maybe sometimes if you have self-honesty and true, real, deep self-honesty, you're really honest with yourself, you're going to say, crap, you got me there. So this is it. When I'm worrying, I'm just avoiding the responsibility, because if I'm worrying, I'm doing something that I can feel, well, I'm doing the right thing. I'm doing the good thing. I'm being genuine. I'm actually doing something. But really, all I'm doing is I'm avoiding the awful truth, the thing that I really know I need to do, but I don't really want to do. I don't want to take the responsibility, whatever. So, okay, well, I'll worry instead. And I can get away with this because, well, worrying is a good thing, supposed to be. Yeah, it's not. Don't do it because you're avoiding responsibility. My mother had so many responsibilities that she avoided every day and didn't want to do, right? I mean, just kind of lazy. Sorry, I shouldn't be ragging on my mother. People say, man, let's use her as an example because it's something I have clear in my mind. I can visualize, I can picture it, I can see it. So she's just a good case study here, So don't put too much into that, right? All right, a belief in betterness. People say all the things from worry and anxiety because they believe this is a betterness. It's not a betterness. It's just a belief in this as a betterness. Right? The worry itself is the idea of betterness. But this is like saying, I'm going to get rid of a worse thing by having a slightly lesser like disease. Well, I'm not going to get COVID because I've got a cold. The cold is better than COVID. So I believe in the cold. And I'm going to pursue and persist in having a cold all the time because if I have a cold, then I'm not going to have COVID. Well, of course, that's not really true, but you still end up with a cold, even if it was true. See, so to have a lesser thing in place of a worse thing, it's only relative betterness. It's not absolute betterness. You still got the crap of the worry, right? Even though it may replace all these other terrible things, right? So betterness is not goodness. Yeah, it's a big difference. Better can be less worse, in other words. Yeah? But if we believe in betterness, we can get fooled into this trap of believing that, oh, it's better. Yeah, okay, to be less ill is better than being more ill, but you're still ill. Yeah. Be less injured is also better than being more injured, but it's not good in itself, right? You're still injured. So this the relative mindset is a very big deal. Right? We have to be very, very careful of this. This comes in many ways, right? I call it shit pile logic for narcissists, right? They looking to be king of the shit pile. And this is it. They'll say to you, yes, I'm king of the shit pile. I said, dude, excuse me, but you're living in a shit pile. Yeah, but I'm king. Dude, you're living in a shit pile. Yeah, but I'm king. To the narcissist, it makes a difference. They so hung up on being at the top of the shit pile, they don't realize that they're living in a shit pile. Right? Betterness, because, well, I'm better than everybody else. So what? You're still crap. Being better is not a goal. Yeah, it's being real, being actually good, being actually sensible, being actually happy, not just happier than others. If I'm happier than you and you miserable and I'm just less miserable, well, technically I'm happier than you. Yeah, so what? I'm still miserable. You're just more miserable. Doesn't make good what I have, right? Very important distinction. This is discernment right there. Very profound. So I'm belaboring the point because it's a huge point. It's a way of thinking that's entrenched in people and they don't even realize it. And it kills them. Sometimes literally, it screws their whole lives up because they have this idea of betterness, right? This belief in betterness, terrible, terrible belief, which goes to superiority, same thing, right? So my mother and her friend, they would feel so superior to everybody else by pointing out all the problems, all the things that they're worried about, which in other words, really is criticizing and judging other people. You crap, you stupid, you silly. I'm worried that they're not going to, I don't know, whatever they're worried about, right? I'm worried that this marriage isn't going to work. I'm superior to you because I can see that there's problems in you and you're not going to make it work or whatever. I'm just using it for an example. You see my point? The payoff is that feeling of superiority by saying, oh, I don't think this is going to work. Oh, it's not going to happen, whatever. Makes me feel superior. Yeah? So be very careful. Superiority is a terrible disease. And it's a paradigm, unfortunately, right? It's our paradigm, the superiority paradigm. This is the world we live in. Hierarchy, jockeying for position, chicken mindset, pecking on each other's heads, all this crap, right? Superiority paradigm. No, don't get caught up in it. Don't live your own life, people. It's, again, betterness, relativity. Superiority paradigm is all about relativity. As long as I'm a little bit higher than you in the pecking order, that's all that counts, right? That's it. Doesn't matter whether the system itself is good. Do yourself a favor and try and watch some nature documentaries of, like, say, lions. For instance. Everybody wants to be a lion, right? You see all these things online. Well, me, I don't want to be a lion. Thank you very much. Hell no. Try and watch a documentary on lions where they just show raw footage, right? Where they don't have it all edited and they just show the cool stuff. But where you see the day in, day out life of a typical lion, they're always busy fighting with each other, right? That's it. Always hierarchy and pay. They make a kill, they bring down the antelope or the zebra or whatever. What happens? They fight with each other for the food. What a way to live. You're fighting with each other for your food. You're fighting with your friends, your family for your food. This is a superiority paradigm. Sucks big time. Somebody's always busy bullying you, unless you're the lion at the top. But then somebody's always trying to take it away from you. You always got to be watching your ass when you're the top line, right? You're always insecure. Somebody's always trying. What a horrible way to live. Superiority paradigm. This whole system sucks. So thank you very much. I do not want to be a lion. Nope, 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 nope. It's all bullshit, right? So pay attention to it. Really look at it very closely. You're going to see something there. Talk about anxiety and worry. This is the life of a lion or a hyena or any animal that's got hierarchy in them. And this applies in zebras and other animals too. They fight with each other for dominance and hierarchy. Not as much as the lions or the predators. They typically tend to be worse. Not all of them. Are some communal, collaborative animals like the wild dogs, which have a different logic, right? So, but lions and hyenas, that have that hierarchy, pecking order, this is a miserable existence. And you're always worried. You always got to be watching your back, because somebody, if you relax and you kind of chilling, somebody come peck on your head, right? Like kids. I mean, that's where the whole pecking order thing comes. They literally peck on each other's heads. How fun is that? How would you like to have your head pecked on? Or like in the science, somebody come bully you, bite you, push you down, whatever, bully you, essentially. That's what those hierarchy systems, superiority, it's all about entrenched, societally approved bullying. Sucks. Yeah. That's true. They sleep a lot. Yeah. Right. But I mean, when they are awake, there's very few moments, and they'll show that. They'll show the moments when their lions are being affectionate. Pay attention. That lion that's being so affectionate, they're carrying favor, right? It's a submissive thing to say, hey, I'm being nice to you so that you won't bully me. It's the start of a different paradigm, but it still sucks. For those few hours that they are awake and they are interacting, not very happy. That's if you can get to see footage of those 4 hours. Of course, the hunt is very stressful too. I mean, you can get killed in the hunt too. It's very unpleasant. That's why you see they're kind of reluctant. One eventually jumps on the thing and takes it down. But most of them are like, oh, hell no, you go. You're welcome. You want to do it? You go ahead, man. So yeah, it's not a fun existence, but we have to be a bit real, really, and watch those 4 hours uninterrupted. Yeah, very important. All right, so superiority, big deal. Now we look at the next payoff here, passive control. What do I mean by passive control? My mother felt like she was in control of her life because she's saying, well, I'm worried that this is going to happen. I'm worried that's going to happen. Makes her feel like she's in control. She's saying something, but it's passive. There's no actions. You're not doing anything, right? It's a big payoff because, wow, there's no risk involved. There's, no effort involved. It's just passive control. In other words, total BS again. Protection. Worry, the payoff for anxiety and worry is protection. At least it's the belief in protection, not actual protection, right? So if I'm worrying about the thing, somehow it's going to insulate me from the thing happening. Somehow being the operative word. Yeah. This is a belief that I'm somehow going to be protected from the bad thing by talking about it. Well, no, actually, sometimes you actually cause the very bad things. Like if you're worried about your kid, not passing the exams. Well, you keep putting this in the kid's head, they start to believe it themselves. And then, of course, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Happens all the time, right? Happens all the time. So we have to be very careful about this. And look at the next one here. Yeah. Something to do. This was the sad reality. My mother didn't know what to do with herself. Her friend likewise, they didn't know what to do with themselves. No imagination, right? No willingness to make an effort. So they ended up worrying and being anxious because they didn't know what to do. I saw this from word goes. Actually, my very first memories are of my mother saying, go and do this, whatever. She would find stuff for me to do. Just because, well, she didn't know what to do to be a mother, and this stressed her, and she was anxious and worried about it. So she would give me all sorts of bullshit stuff to do. That's only if I was there. If I was elsewhere, if I was outside, then I didn't have to do any of that stuff. So of course, I spent all my time away from my mother because she'd find me bullshit stuff to do. So that worked for me. It's not like when I came back in at the end of the day and she said, well, now you've got all the stuff that's built up and you got to catch up and do it all. No, I got away with doing nothing. But if I was in her presence, she'd find all these 101 stupid little idiotic things to me to do, just because of the something to do. And no imagination, no willingness to think and do for herself. I mean, yes, she could do things. She could be very competent. She wasn't a stupid woman. She was an intelligent woman. But she was caught up in this anxiety and worry loop because she was so concerned about her ego that she didn't actually look at the things themselves. Yeah? Too concerned with her ego. And of course, I said earlier, getting heard, anxiety and worry is a loneliness replacement. That's a big point here, people. So yes, I may sound like I'm unsympathetic towards the worry pots. Somebody said that I'm a bit harsh when it comes to the worry pots. I might be, but I think so. I'm pushing a button a little bit to press through that barrier. But at times too, we have to have compassion. Yes, a lot of lonely people in the world. And loneliness is like one of the biggest diseases in the world as far as I'm concerned. It's like negativity. It's a very profound disease. Yeah? It's connected to not being heard and so on. But people will be anxious and worry because they're replacing their loneliness with it. It's a very poor mechanism to replace your loneliness. There's many other things you can do. So be aware that just because you found a replacement doesn't mean it is the most appropriate or most ideal replacement. And does it really work? No, not really. It works a little bit, yes. And I guess at least having the anxiety and worry is better than the loneliness. It's relative again, see, better than. It doesn't mean it's good in itself, right? So that's a very, very terrible trap to fall into, to start replacing your loneliness with things like anxiety. Of course, people replace their loneliness with all sorts of crazy behavior. It's not just anxiety and worry, right? So very big deal. Connectedness. My mother and her friend connected through their anxiety and worry. Connectedness is a very legitimate payoff. To be connected is a huge deal. Yes, because when we connected, we get 1 + 1 = more through connectivity, right? Connectivity is the first step towards collaboration. Now, my mother and her friend connected. They didn't collaborate because they didn't really listen to each other. They were just, saying whatever they said and listening to themselves. But connectedness, this is a big payoff for anxiety and worry. Again, it's a short-sighted payoff, right? And all of these here, they're short-sighted. Don't look at the short term, look at the longer term. Concentration. That's an interesting payoff, yeah? Actually, it would help for concentration. They would actually be concentrating on something. So somewhat of a legitimate thing, but again, you have to take it further. Same thing with the next one, right? This can be a very legitimate payoff or a motivation to worry, right? When you use it for preparedness. But then you are going to shift from anxiety and worry to being concerned and to being preemptive if you're going to actually do something about your preparedness. But in my mother's case and her friend, they just felt like they were preparing. They just felt like it. Did they actually do any preparations to take care of the things that they were worried about? No, they did none whatsoever. Zero. But they felt like, oh, I'm being prepared. No, just bullshit, right? So problem recognition, yes, this is a very good payoff. Legitimately, you're in a job or whatever, and you're worrying about stuff that might happen. It's problem recognition, but you don't have to do it negatively. You can pay attention to problem recognition as a positive exercise. Worry and anxiety puts that negative fear and stress on it, because that's what worry and anxiety is. It's just fear that's being dealt with in a particular way. You can say, well, I need to look at what the problems are without fear. It's an exercise of joy. Hey, I'm looking at the problems. I'm recognizing the problems. I'm figuring out the problems. This is a positive thing. You don't have to associate it with fear. You don't have to. Community, yes. My mother and her friend, they were part of a community of worry pots. It gave them a sense of community. Again, fills up that loneliness, right? But again, it's bogus. It's short term. Right? Being part of something, being a part of something, yes. They felt like they were a part of something more by paying attention to this. It's sad. It's sad. Very sad. Right? Doing good. This is a very important point here. Very important point here. Right? Doing good. They came to believe that you should worry. How many people do you not know? All of you, right? Ryan, Janelle, Ramsey, Norma. How many people do you not know, or yourselves maybe, that think you should worry? Why should you worry? Because this is what good people do. It shows you care. You should worry because if you don't worry, then you don't care. Is that true? Is that true? If you don't worry, you don't care. Is that actually true? No, it's not true, right? It's not true at all. So this is a very big point, right? This misassociation, this misunderstanding that worrying means you are doing good. Yes, it's a very big point. Very, very big point. All right, I know I have the time set for 2 hours. I should actually set it for 1 hour. So I want to leave it there on this doing good point, because this is a very big point, and I'll carry on with this next week. This misunderstanding that worry and anxiety means we are doing good. It's a bogus doing good. It's not real. You aren't actually doing good. You just believe that you're doing good. And you're trying to show that you're doing good. You're trying to prove that you care. It's a very poor way of caring. There are much better ways of caring. Much, much better ways of caring, right? So as parents, especially, we worry about our kids because we think we should. There are much better ways to care for your kids than worry. Yes. Be cautious, be deliberate, be preemptive, take action, do things, institute programs, change, learn, grow, doing, right? Application. Worrying, it's a looping circle. It's bogus. It's a square circle, I call them. Something that you believe is real, but it's actually fictitious and impossible, cannot actually happen. So very, very big point. Wonderful. Are you guys still here with me? Did I put you to sleep already? I hope so. All right. So on that note, I'm going to end it there, as I do have something that I need to do. I have another Zoom I need to take care of. So wonderful. So as appropriate, we shift and we change. Anyway, it's a lot anyway. So I want to overload things. So thank you very much, all of you, for being here. Yeah. Appreciate it very much. So great. Very cool to see you on, Ramsey. Very cool. I hope you come next week. Janelle, always marvelous that you're here. Ryan, always marvelous that you're here. Same Norma. Love it that you guys are here. So brilliant. So, all right. So on that note, I'm going to end it right there. All right. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everybody. So, hold on. There we go. Stop the live stream.